Jack Miller sat at the kitchen table, his fingers clutching a hot cup of coffee. The evening's silence, punctuated only by the ticking of the clock, seemed unbearably long. In the next room, Layla, his wife, was finishing the last preparations for another night out. Her laughter, tinkling and unruffled, reached Jack, causing a lump in his throat. "Layla," he called out, and his voice, full of fatigue and pain, cut through the air. "What?" she replied with a note of irritation, not taking her eyes off the hallway mirror where she was lining her lips with red lipstick. "You re-leaving again," he said, asserting rather than asking. Layla cast a quick glance over her shoulder, her dark eyes gleaming under the light of the chandelier. She silently returned to her occupation, as if his words did not exist. "Layla, this is the third time this month. I asked you to." She turned, flipping her long hair. "You asked me to? Really, Jack? You have no right to control me. I'm a grown woman, and I'm going to do what I want." Jack set the cup down abruptly on the table, the hot coffee splashing over the edge, making dark stains on the wooden surface. He stood up and took a few steps toward the hallway, his massive figure filling the door space. "If you leave now, do not come back." His voice sounded muffled, but there was an iron determination in it. Layla squinted, her lips curving in a sneer. "Who are you to threaten me? Do you think I'll believe your empty words? You re too weak to do such a thing." The silence that followed her words was tense. Jack looked at her, beautiful, defiant, with an unruly fire in her eyes. He knew he had once loved this woman with all his heart, but now her indifference was like a knife that cut him slowly and endlessly. "You've made your choice," he mumbled, turned, and walked away into the back of the house. Half an hour later, Jack was sitting in his car in front of a popular nightclub. Luminous signs, neon lights, and loud music created a pulsating party atmosphere. People bustled in and out, laughing and hugging, absorbed in their entertainment. Jack watched the entrance, drumming his fingers nervously on the steering wheel. His gaze slid back and forth over the faces in the crowd, and his heart sank every time he thought he saw Layla. Finally, after an hour of tense waiting, he saw a cab pull up. Layla, radiant and relaxed, stepped out of the car, followed by her friend, but the third was Trevor Reed. Jack gripped the steering wheel so hard his fingers turned white. He recognized Trevor at once. He was younger, more attractive, with a deceptively charming smile he did not trust for a second. He watched as Layla wrapped her arms around Trevor, laughing and pressing her whole body against him. Jack felt his heart start to pound faster as he watched them walk into the club, holding hands. "It's over," he whispered to himself, feeling the anger boiling up inside. Jack got out of the car and walked determinedly toward the entrance. His figure, in a dark jacket and jeans, stood out among the brightly dressed people, but no one paid him any attention. He found a way to sneak into the club and headed towards the VIP area, where he spotted Layla and Trevor. She was wearing the very dress that fit her slim figure, and now she was sitting on Trevor's lap, dancing to slow music. Layla's laugh was so familiar, but it seemed different, almost obscene. He could hear her laughter and see her body moving to the beat of the music. It was all so damned sexy, relentlessly alluring, but sleazy at the same time. It was as if his own wife was losing her self-respect, and he was a spectator, unable to change anything. Layla did not notice his presence. She smiled as she closed her eyes, her movements becoming more and more passionate, and her gaze, full of pleasure, was directed only at Trevor. Jack saw this and could not believe it was his wife. Was she really that volatile, that willing to give herself to another man in front of everyone, forgetting that she had a husband? Trevor lifted her a little higher, pulling her against him. Jack felt his body fill with a fierce desire to tear it all away, but he could not move. With every move Layla made, with every touch from Trevor, his pain intensified. He felt his throat constrict with hatred and powerlessness. He wanted to scream, but his voice was suppressed, as if it just was not there. Layla continued to dance without him noticing. He saw Trevor wrapping his arms completely around her, pulling her against him. His fingers slid down her thighs, and Layla closed her eyes, all absorbed in that moment. She was in her own universe, full of sounds, smells, and pleasures. Jack, unable to hold back any longer, tried to get up, to get out, to get away from this nightmare. But suddenly, Layla turned her head, and their eyes met. "Layla," he suddenly called out, his voice piercing through the noise of the club. Layla froze. Her face changed, the laughter gone, giving way to surprise and perhaps fear. "Jack, what are you doing here?" she shouted, jumping up from Trevor's lap. Trevor rose lazily, examining Jack with a slight sneer. "Hey, buddy, calm down. You do not belong here." Jack took a step forward, ignoring the protests and yells of those around him. "I do not belong? You re the one who should not have interfered in my life," he said, his voice low but rich with emotion. "Jack, we re not making a scene. Not here." Layla tried to control her voice, but it was shaking. "No, Layla, the scene was made by you. And not just here, but in all of our lives." Jack turned and walked away, leaving her and Trevor in stunned silence. Back at home, Jack sat down in a chair in the darkened living room. He could hear the clock on the wall chipping away at each new hour. The minutes dragged on, and the sound of Layla's last laugh echoed in his head as she hugged another man. Jack sat in the darkened living room, clutching an empty coffee mug in his hands. Hours had passed, and he still could not bring himself to turn off the lights or go to bed. The scene from the club played over and over in his head, Layla laughing and drawn to Trevor, his hands sliding under her dress. Pain squeezed her chest, but it was replaced by something new, a cold, clear determination. "Enough," he whispered to himself, as if speaking a sentence. He stood up and made his way to the bedroom. The spacious room was filled with a silence that had once seemed cozy but was now oppressive. He saw the pictures on the bedside table, him and Layla on vacation, laughing, hugging. Jack picked up the frame, looked at the photo, and threw it to the floor with force. The glass shattered, shards scattering across the wooden floor. "It'll be over tomorrow," he said, looking at his reflection in the cracked glass. He needed to move on. Tomorrow he would take the first step. In the morning, Jack stood at the entrance to the office of Vivian Carter, a well-known divorce attorney. He'd heard only good things about her. Insightful, tough, and unwavering. Just the kind of person he needed. "Mr. Miller, come in," the assistant said as she escorted him into a stern office. The room was understated but stylishly furnished. A glass desk, dark bookshelves, and a pair of leather armchairs by the window. "Jack Miller, right?" Vivian stood up and held out her hand to him. Her eyes were sharp, studying, but not hostile. "Yes." "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." Jack sat up, feeling the tension leave his body. "Tell me what happened," Vivian said, lowering herself into a chair and opening a notebook. Her voice was businesslike, but with a touch of understanding. Jack sighed. "My wife, Layla, cheated on me. I know it for a fact. Saw it with my own eyes. And it has been going on for months. I'm tired of the lies, the innuendos. I want a divorce." Vivian nodded. "I understand. You need to gather evidence to make the process go smoothly. Photographs, messages, financial documents, anything that proves infidelity and profligacy." Jack straightened. "I've got something. Access to accounts and statements. Plus, I took some photos and screenshots of messages I found randomly. That's a good start." Vivian made notes. "I'll warn you, the process can be long and painful. Are you sure you're ready for it?" Jack looked out the window where city life flowed on. A picture of Layla and Trevor popped into his mind. He clenched his fists. "Yeah, I'm ready." The day turned to evening as Jack returned home to gather his paperwork. He spent a long time looking for the right papers, running his eyes over bills and statements. Several times he stumbled across transactions that pissed him off, amounts spent on lavish restaurants and nightclubs. Suddenly, the phone rang. Layla's name popped up on the screen. He froze, feeling everything inside him clench. He was not going to answer it, but for a moment something in him changed. He pressed the call receive button. "Jack." Layla's voice sounded nervous. "We need to talk." There is nothing more to talk about, Layla, he replied coldly. You've made your choice. Please listen to me. I know what it looks like, but you have to understand. No, he interrupted her, trying to keep his voice steady. I do not have to understand anything. I've seen enough. Silence hung in the receiver. Then she spoke, but this time her voice was quieter and shakier. Jack, please. I'm confused. I did not mean for it to come to this. It is too late, Layla. Very late, he said and dropped the call. For the next week, Jack spent the next week meticulously gathering all the evidence. He obtained bank statements that showed Layla's exorbitant spending. He made copies of correspondence and photographs that confirmed her infidelity. Nights passed in work, and mornings began with visits to Vivian, who grew more impressed with his determination each day. You have a strong position, she once said as she looked over another set of evidence. But be prepared for Layla and her lawyer to fight back. Let them try. Jack lowered his gaze to his notes. I'm not going to let myself get dragged into this chaos again. A few days later, there was a knock on the door. Jack opened it and saw Layla. Her face was pale, her eyes inflamed. We need to talk, she said, clutching her bag with trembling hands. Why are you here, Layla? He asked, holding back his emotions. Please, Jack. I know I messed up, but I want to explain myself. Jack took a step back, letting her know this was not an invitation to come in. Explain yourself? You think there is anything to explain after everything I've seen? Yeah, I'm confused. Her voice trailed off. Everything went wrong, and I did not know how to stop it. He looked at her. There was no more anger in his eyes, only weariness. You made your choice, Layla. And I've made mine. Tomorrow begins a new phase for both of us, and it will be without you. Layla covered her face with her hands, and Jack closed the door. A week after Jack filed for divorce, Layla's life was becoming more chaotic and hopeless by the day. Her world was crumbling before her eyes, and she felt like she was losing control of everything she had once held dear. Jack was gone. The house was empty, and her soul continued to ache with the realization that she had destroyed herself. She knew she could not go back, that all their years together, all the love that had once been between them, was now lost forever. But Layla could not help herself. The inner tension, the guilt, the powerlessness, it was all eating her up from the inside out. That Friday night, as Layla sat in her office going through old photographs, trying to recapture some part of the life she had destroyed, the phone rang. It was Trevor, her former lover. She looked at the phone screen, then slowly pressed the answer button. Layla? Are you okay? His voice was wary, but she detected a note of concern in it. Do you think I'm okay? She replied sarcastically. It is hard to be fine when everything is falling apart. I get it. I understand what you're going through. Trevor seemed sincere. I've seen it all unfold, and I do not want you to feel alone. UCA not help me, Trevor. UCA not bring back everything I've lost. Trevor was silent, and she felt the pain shoot through her again. Her heart clenched with disappointment. She had always known that her relationship with Trevor was a mistake, but she had hoped that at least one part of her life would remain intact after this. However, there was nothing left untouched. You know, it takes me a while to realize things, she said, trying to hold back the tears. I see a not just go back to you, Trevor. I see a not. Layla, I do not expect anything from you, but you realize you're not alone. I'm here, and I'm here to help you. You just, let us at least meet, talk. You have to realize that you can get through this. She felt something stirring in her chest, but then her thoughts returned to Jack. How could he stand by her side all these years without noticing that she was moving further and further away from him? How could he not notice her loneliness, which grew deeper every day? I do not know, Trevor, Layla said. I just do not know. I've tried to make things right, but it is too late now. Jack filed for divorce, and I do not know how I'm going to move on. Trevor did not seem to know what to say. In the pause between them, Layla realized that despite everything that had happened, she still felt affection for Trevor, but it was not love. It was just a temporary relief from the pain. You think I had not noticed? He replied, his voice soft now, even caring. You know, I've been thinking about you a lot, too. And to be honest, I'm not sure it was all worth it. I'm not sure either. Layla lowered her head, looking tiredly at her hands. But you know I see a not be with you, Trevor. I see a not. The call cut off, and she was left alone in the room, absorbed in her thoughts. There was still a blink of an eye on the phone screen for a few more seconds. Tom seemed to slow down until she pressed the end call button. She could not handle it anymore. The breakup, the guilt, what she had lost. But what could be the right way out? Staying alone or seeking the forgiveness she so badly desired? But there was no forgiveness anymore. Jack had decided his own. The next morning, Layla decided it was time to meet with her lawyer. She sat in her favorite cafe, trying to get her thoughts in order. She was not ready to just leave everything behind. But maybe it was time to try something new, to try to change her life, even if it meant facing the consequences. The lawyer was adamant, but offered Layla a few options that could minimize the impact of her cheating on the divorce. He suggested she negotiate with Jack, but Layla knew that negotiation would not change anything. He was too far away from her. She needed to find a way to get him back. But how? How could she regain the trust she'd broken? Layla, you realize we see a not just go with our feelings, the lawyer said. We have to work with what we have. You have rights. You have a right to property division, to alimony. But you need to behave appropriately and collectively to do that. And all of this will be more difficult if you continue to involve outsiders in the situation. I suggest you think seriously about what you want to do next. Layla nodded, but only images of Jack flashed through her mind. She could not understand what made her cling to him so much when it was already over. Something inside her told her it was not over. But how could she be sure if she had ruined what they had? Jack was sitting in his office, going through paperwork. He was busy preparing for the breakup, but his thoughts kept returning to Layla. She was there, in his life, and now she was part of his past. Jack's past that he did not want to remember. His hand involuntarily clutched his pen as he saw the message from the lawyer on his phone screen. Layla wants to meet Jack. She has offers. She wants to negotiate. He set the phone aside, looking out the window. He knew the meeting was inevitable. But was it necessary for him? He kept thinking about it, reflecting on how far they had drifted apart, on the fact that he no longer saw Layla as the woman he loved. Jack felt devastated, but at the same time, liberated. The divorce process had already been set in motion, and there was nothing else keeping him in this house. Every morning he woke up with the realization that he no longer had to pretend, no longer had to hide his feelings, no longer had to justify Layla to himself. This was his life, his decision, his path. But with it came a sense of loneliness that Jack could not shake, despite his determination. The next few days passed quickly, as if his entire life was reduced to legal documents, evidence gathering, and meetings with his lawyer. Layla disappeared from his life, as if she had never existed. Never came home, never called. Jack knew she was looking for excuses for her actions, that maybe she was scared, but most of all he felt she just did not know how to find her way back. Or maybe she did not want to. That day, when Vivian's attorney informed him that all the paperwork was ready, Jack felt a weight on his shoulders disappear. He was ready to face Layla, to give her a chance to say whatever she thought she needed to say, but without the hope of forgiveness. Layla came to their house. She stood on the threshold, holding her purse, looking like she had nowhere to go. She was completely different from the woman he had known before. Her gaze was not as confident as before. Her movements seemed slowed. Layla clearly felt that this moment was critical, and she did not have much time. "May I come in?" she asked, shivering faintly. Jack did not answer right away. He looked at her and wondered how he must feel. Revenge? Or pity? There was no room in his soul for pity, and he knew that feeling would never return. "Come in," he finally said, and took a step back, giving her room to pass. Once she was inside, Jack closed the door behind her and, without a word, pointed to the couch. Layla sat down, leaning forward slightly as a sign that she wanted to start a conversation, but did not know where to begin. "I do not know how to begin, Jack," she said with difficulty. "I'm really sorry. Yeah, I thought I could handle all of this, but I was wrong. I just miss you." Jack grinned derisively. "Miss you? You mean you've missed me all this time?" When you were lying around with Trevor, when you were spending your nights out clubbing, or when you were deciding how to keep things from me. Layla lowered her head and her shoulders slumped, as if she realized immediately that her pity would not play a role in this conversation. I'm confused, Jack, she said with difficulty. It was not conscious. You were so busy with your work and I felt like I was losing you. I was lonely. I made a mistake. I know that. You were not wrong, Jack said sharply. You betrayed me. Do not try to explain it away with loneliness. You chose your path. You loved it. And all I meant to you was mere convenience. She jumped up, pushing her chair back, and began pacing the room nervously. No, Jack, it was not. I never meant to hurt you. You re my husband. I love you. But it's been so hard all these years. You did not hear me. You did not see me. I was just a woman waiting for you to come home, and I could not talk to you normally anymore. We became like neighbors. Yeah, I did not know how to deal with it. He was there for me. And you think that as an excuse? Jack stood up and walked over to her, his voice growing quieter, but with an iron determination audible in it. Are you saying it was my fault that you cheated? You want to blame me for you liking someone else? Layla fell silent. Her lips trembled, and she felt her pride melt away. In that look, Jack saw not just bitterness, but a lack of understanding as to why she'd gone to such lengths. Why not she talked? Why not she try to keep what they had? I see I not take it anymore, Jack said, backing away from her. This is not about you, Layla. It's about me. I see I not be with you anymore. You've broken me, not just physically, but in my soul. And now when I look at you, I no longer see the woman I married. You've become a stranger. So I've made up my mind. Layla froze, feeling her legs go under. She realized that she was no longer entitled to his forgiveness, that her words could not change anything. She felt empty inside. Without him, without his attention and care, she did not know what to do next. Do you want a divorce? She asked in a whisper, as if it was the only question that mattered now. Yes, Jack answered without hesitation. I see I not keep living in this, Layla. We both deserve something else. You deserve to be with someone who understands you. And I deserve to be happy, not to keep fighting with someone who betrayed me. Layla stood there as if paralyzed and realized that in all this time she had tried to find excuses for her actions, but none of them were strong enough to bring Jack back. She was left alone. 3 days later, Jack filed for divorce. Vivian provided all the necessary documents and began the official procedure. Jack no longer felt torn. He knew the decision was the right one. Although he still had a long battle ahead of him, he realized that it was the only way to finally feel free. Meanwhile, Layla tried to find support among friends and co-workers, but no one could help her rebuild what she had lost. Trevor had disappeared, as had all her attempts to return to her old life. And now, standing in front of the mirror in her empty apartment, she realized that she herself had destroyed everything that was important. Layla sat at her car in front of Jack's office, gripping the steering wheel so tight her fingers turned white with tension. Her heart was pounding in her chest, and her thoughts were jumbled in her head. She knew this meeting could be crucial. She had to either close this chapter of her life or try to make a change. But what exactly could she change? Time was passing, but she still lacked the resolve to get out of the car. The bright rays of the fall sun streamed through the office windows, and Layla suddenly felt like the whole world had become foreign and distant. She looked at the buildings around her and realized that everything was truly ruined for her. At times it seemed to her that all of this was happening in another reality, and she herself was here by accident, just watching her life fall apart. After a few minutes, she did get out of the car, deciding that she had to meet with Jack today and decide what would happen next. Leave him for good? Or would try to get back everything she'd ruined? She walked into the office, feeling the tension inside her build with every step. Jack sat at his desk, his face serious, but when he saw Layla, he made an effort not to show his emotions. He did not want her to see how much he was hurting, how hard it was to look at her after what she had done. But he was not the type of man to have idle conversations. You came, he said, his voice not cold, but there was a tiredness in it. Sit down. Layla stood in front of his desk and, for a moment, hesitated. Silently she sat down, not knowing what to say. The fact that she was here was already a step, but she felt like it was not enough. She did not know how to start, what to say, so as not to ruin everything completely. She paused, trying to gather her thoughts. I did not know where to start. I just wanted to talk. Jack bowed his head, his gaze heavy, attentive. He was looking at her, but there was not the warmth in his eyes that had once burned when they were young and happy. What are we going to talk about, Layla? He asked finally, the weariness in his voice evident. About what you did, about how you destroyed our family, about how you betrayed me, betrayed us, or about something else. Layla felt her stomach clench with pain. Those words were like a knife, but she knew he was right. She done it. She destroyed everything they built for so long. She had betrayed him, his trust. Her own face burned with shame. I say not fix this, Jack, she said, trying to speak calmly, though everything inside her was turning over. But I want to at least explain what happened. Why it happened. Why I did what I did. Jack stared at her in silence. He did not say anything. He just waited, waiting for her to open up on her own, and for her to realize that not all words could be forgiven. I not explain why I did what I did. I was trying to find something I was missing in my relationship with you. Layla suddenly realized how stupid and unjustified she sounded. But the words had already been said. I tried to get my freedom back, but I lost myself. I lost us. Jack leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He did not know what to say to her. She was saying the same words she said before, but now it sounded different, not sincere, but like an excuse. You make it sound like it was all something random, Layla. But you know it was not. You chose this road. You chose to betray me, chose to do something that would destroy not only our family, but ourselves. His voice was getting harder, but Layla could see that there was still pain inside of him. It was pain not just for himself, but for them, for the fact that they had once been happy. Layla was ready to cry, but she held back. She could not afford to show her weakness. She had already lost a lot, and she was not about to lose her dignity. You rewrite, she said quietly. I chose this path, and I'll never forgive myself for it. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way things turned out. If I could go back in time, I would have done things differently. I would not have done this to you, but I see not. And now I have to live with it. Jack looked at her. The silence in the room was oppressive, and Layla felt each moment drag on like an eternity. You realize that these are not just words to me, he said after a pause. You've ruined not only us, but yourself. And I'm not sure you can go back to the way things were. Our lives have changed, and not all mistakes can be undone. Layla felt her heart clench. She sat in front of him, trying to find some words that could somehow lighten the atmosphere. But she knew that words would not suffice. I'm ready to start over, Jack. But only if you want me to. I know it's going to be hard. But if you give me a chance, I can earn back your trust. Jack was silent again. He searched her eyes for something in them that could give him back at least some of what they had between them. But there was an emptiness in his heart. Layla was not the woman he knew. Everything was ruined. I'm not sure I can believe you, Layla. And to be honest, I'm not sure I'm ready to try. But you have to understand, I did not just decide to divorce you. You betrayed me. Layla stood up, feeling like she could not sit still any longer. She walked to the window, looking at the bustle outside the glass. Time was against her. I realize you would not forgive me. And I'm not asking you to forgive me, to take me back. But I had to come here and say all this, Jack. I had to try. She turned to him, and their gazes met. There was no rage in his eyes, but there was no love either. Layla realized that their relationship had faded into oblivion, and maybe it was the right thing to do. If you decide you want more of me in your life, know that I will not wait. I see not. I've lost everything. Jack looked at her sadly, but without hope. You may have lost everything, but I'm not sure this is where I belong. Goodbye, Layla. Layla stood in front of Jack. Their gazes held on each other for a few more moments. She felt the chill in her chest slowly turn into an icy stupor. She heard his words, but she could not believe this was all happening to them. Not so long ago, they had been a couple making plans, laughing, dreaming of the future. Now, they were on the verge of ruining everything completely, and that was the reality of it. She tried to hold back the tears, but her eyes darkened with worry and her breathing became heavy. All she could do was try to leave with dignity, to swallow her feelings and not let slackness get in the way. It seemed to her that if she showed any vulnerability at all, it would be the end of her. "I'm leaving," Layla said, not taking her eyes off Jack. "I will not bother you anymore, but you have to understand that I still love you. I never stopped, and if I could, I'd take it all back." Jack only nodded. His face remained impenetrable. He did not say a word, did not offer anything. There was no anger or irritation in his eyes, just emptiness. It was as if he'd been through it all before and knew Layla had nothing more to say. She had changed their lives, and now she had to learn to live with the consequences. Layla turned around, taking a step toward the door, and was about to walk out when his voice suddenly stopped her. "Layla," Jack said with quiet determination. "I do not know what's going to happen next, but know this, I do not want to regret. I see a not believe the words you re-saying. All these excuses, they would not bring us back. You destroyed what we were building, and now you have to decide what to do with yourself." His words were like lightning bolts that pierced her heart. He was not angering her. He was not accusing her. He was simply stating a fact. He was right. She had ruined everything. She had made a decision, and now she had to take responsibility for it. Layla, before she could reply, walked out of the office and closed the door behind her. Inside her, something was breaking down completely. Everything that she had tried to hide from herself was spilling out. Now she was faced with reality. She was alone, without a husband, without trust, without hope for the future. She walked down the hallway, feeling neither tired nor sore, just the cold. Her footsteps echoed in the empty walls, and it was as if she were walking through a tunnel with no way out. As she got into the car, she was alone with herself again. The rearview mirror reflected her pale face, her eyes full of pain. It was as if life itself had turned away from her. But she knew it was the only path she could choose. She had chosen her own freedom, but she had lost everything else. A few days later, Layla received a message from Trevor. He still had not stopped being in her life, even after she had finally ended her relationship with Jack. He was her friend, but he was also something more. And now that her world had crumbled, Trevor had offered to help her again. "You know, I'm always here for you if you want to talk. Do not kid yourself, Layla. You are not alone." Her fingers trembled as she read the message. She could feel herself reaching out to Trevor, searching for reassurance and support in his words. But despite all of that, she knew that her bond with him could not be long-lasting. She had betrayed Jack, and now she was betraying herself. And even though Trevor was there for her, she could not let him become her new refuge. It was just a way to escape reality. She replied shortly, "Thank you, but I think I need time. You've been good to me, but I see ain't not right now." With that, Layla put the phone away and turned toward the window. Fall was in full swing. The leaves on the trees were already starting to turn yellow. Time continued to pass despite her inner emptiness. Time with no way of turning back. A couple days later, Layla met up with Jack again. He offered to talk to her, but now their conversation was different. He was not angry. He was just quiet and determined. "You say not come back to us," he said, looking at Layla as if she were a stranger. "I see not go through this again. You ruined everything, and now you have to accept that. You have to realize that life moves on, and maybe there's no room for us in this life." Her face blurred with tears. She sat in front of him, trying to hold back her emotions. But this time she could no longer hide her pain. She had lost everything, her love, her trust, her future. "You rewrite, Jack. I've ruined everything, and I see not fix it, but I have to move on. Even if it hurts, I know I have to." Jack nodded silently. He realized that this was the last moment they could try to make a difference. And even though his heart was broken too, he could not afford to go back. There was no way. "It's over, Layla," he said, his voice firm, but there was still pain in it. "We see not be together. I forgive you, but I see not go on." Layla stood up, and with every step she took towards the door, she felt like she was losing herself. But one thing was clear to her. She could no longer be the person she was. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.